So let's talk a little bit about mental health. Let's take the time to do some good stuff. Now's a time where people are, energy is really high, and people are a little bit distressed. And so I thought it'd be a good opportunity just to slow down and just have a bit of a chat. So how are you going today?
Yeah, mate, good. I think it's really, like you pointed out, it's a really good opportunity for us to slow down as a nation and then as a global force, really, and take kind of stock of where our mental health is as a global community.
Yeah, look, it really is. It really is that situation where right now I feel people are either panicking. I talk to a lot of people who are almost busier than they've ever been as well, which is absolutely fantastic, and producing income in their business. I find another range of people who are scrambling for business, and so they're busier than they've ever been and stressed. But everyone's stress levels do seem to be a little elevated right now.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other group who've just decided, hey, look, we're all been told to go sit home. I can't work, so I'm going to go and binge on Netflix.
Yeah.
Probably having a beer. So they're the three beers as far as I'm concerned. We're busy, we're bored, or we're binging.
Yeah.
So talk to us about how we can be a little bit more productive. What are some things that we can do? And actually, let's go back a step. Matt, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So Kevin Chippy by trade, moved from Western Australia to Queensland 10 years ago now to chase the rugby league dream, which a lot of us have done. Always was someone that was bringing people together, either whether it was the smoko shed as a tradie or it was toolbox meetings or it was on the footy field. I was kind of tried to be the linchpin of connection. So 5 years ago, I sadly lost my best friend Justin in an accident, and I found myself from being in a place where I thought I was the linchpin of connection to realizing that I wasn't as connected to my community or my friends or my family as perhaps I thought I was. So for the last 5 years, I've been heavily in the mental health space, learning and educating and passing on messages of human connection and why it's so prevalent. And right now we're being exposed to the absolute core of how disconnected we possibly were and how we're now trying to scramble to become connected on a whole nother level. I've said for years, we're the most digitally connected we've ever been, but as human beings, we're the most disconnected we've ever been. And now I've got to kind of eat my words because digital connection is all we have. And we need to make sure that we're leaning into human connection through a digital perspective.
And look, I agree and disagree all at the same time. So yes, and let's say that, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we are less connected in a more meaningful way than we've ever been. However, the internet for me and social media is a way that we can start a relationship.
Yep.
That isn't where we should be fully conducting that relationship. It's just, to be like you had a hey neighbour or someone that you always met when you went down the pub, right? And when you're at the pub, you're great mates and that was awesome. And then you go home, you don't even think about that dude.
Yeah.
And then, next week you're back down the pub, hey, how you going? And, you seriously are friends at the pub, but outside the pub, you're just not thinking about each other.
Yeah.
And to me, that's social media all over, right?
Yeah.
Basically when you're there and you do start meaningful relationships, but if all it ever stays on is social media, then it's a social media friendship. Like so many people have thousands and thousands of social media friends. And yet, a long time ago, there was a study that found that we could really only emotionally cope with up to about 150 people. Okay. And once it got beyond that number, our brain didn't know how to handle that. So maybe our brain's evolved since then and we can handle a lot more relationships. I know I've got over 2,000 people on LinkedIn and we've got 8,500 members of the group. And I seriously am very concerned on one hand about everyone in this group, but it's all a very superficial thing. Like, I bump into people in the street and I don't know them because they've seen me more than I've seen them.
Yeah.
So I do get the whole connected, disconnected, both at the same time thing.
Yeah, it's got to be a weighbridge, really, doesn't it? It's the same as when you go to a tip, you weigh your car on the way in. It's a weighbridge as long as you're taking it with you. So we can't just stay our connections online. We need to make sure we're taking our connections further. And that's why we've got the likes of Zoom and FaceTime and all these things that we can be connecting with our friends and family at the moment because, familiar faces and familiar voices are just two of the best ways that we can be connecting to one another. And that's just so relevant and prevalent right now that we need to be leaning onto that and leaning into each other.
Absolutely. And so what are 3 quick tips that we can do to improve our connection?
Yeah, absolutely. So first things you have to do is improve your connection with yourself. It's the same old saying that, you can't love anyone else unless you love yourself. And it's hard to connect to others if you're feeling disconnected from yourself. So the best thing that you can do is straight from the get-go is have a really good morning routine. So we've got a morning routine that we give people. There's 5 phases to it. I won't spend too much time on them, but it's really simple in the fact that first thing you do when you get up is you jump into a cold shower. And I don't use cold showers for the science behind it. They're fantastic for your body and your organs. What I use cold showers for is it's uncomfortable, but I know that I can get through it. So that's straight away. I'm putting a score on the board for Team Matt for the start of the day. Second thing is I make my bed. Again, very small task, but it's another score on the board for me. So before I've even left my bedroom or my master area of the house, I've got 2 points on the board. I then jump in to drink some water, make sure we're hydrating our body. We've been dehydrating the entire night. I do what's called a brain dump. Fancy people will call it journaling. I call it a brain dump. I essentially take all the thoughts that are in my head and try to pop them down on paper. And then some sort of movement or meditation, depending on my mood. I think meditation's fantastic, but some days I just don't feel like it's for me. So I'll just get into some movement. I've been going for runs off late, bit of self-running, self-exercising just on my own, no headphones, just hearing the breathes. So they're the 5 morning routines that we can do. The second thing is knowing how your stress speaks. So stress for us is all very different. So how you show up as stress, Kevin, will be completely different to me. For me, it's cleaning the kitchen, which is something I don't do on an everyday practice. But if I'm stressed, you will know because the kitchen will be squeaky clean. So making sure you know what your stress languages are. They might be sweating. They might be high heart rate. They might be cleaning the kitchen. They might be getting angry at the dog. Who knows? But find what it is for you. And thirdly, is another really good one is a circuit breaker. So similar to too much energy coming into a house, circuit breakers for humans are the same. So it's if there's too much stress coming into our bodies, whether externally or internally putting stress on ourselves, knowing what our circuit breaker is and applying that. So it might be 10-minute walk. It might be 10 minutes of crappy videos on YouTube. It might be 10 minutes of reading reading up on an educational piece. Just a few little tips that help us connect with ourselves, which then helps us connect to others.
Yeah, this finding a circuit breaker is a really interesting thing. I remember years ago, we had I had a recruitment company. We had a guy come in and have a chat, Dr. Adam Fraser, I think his name is, and he talked about getting in the flow. And one of the things that he talked about very much was having a third space, because there's you at work and there's you at home. And it's very hard to just go from work to home. And right now, when so many of us are working at home because we need to find that third space. What's that transition zone where we go from being at work and then going to home, so that we can clearly be with our partners, our family when we're at home, and we can be absolutely present there. And then, going through that third space, we can then prepare for the day, and then coming back, we can prepare for being at home. And it's having that space. He said, look, he had, and this is going back a little while. I think, this would have been in the 2006, 7, 8, somewhere around there. And he said, there was this really high-end executive. There was very high in the banking industry, and he was doing some work with him about performance coaching for this particular guy, and he found his third space happened to be Kylie Minogue on full blast on his drive from the city to his house, right? And if anybody had really known what he was doing, they would have thought this guy was mad. But that was this guy's third space. It didn't have to be, it should be a routine that is grounded or anchored, as opposed to being an exact space. But it could be a space where you just went, you're quiet, whatever, or it could be a high level of activity like a running or something like that. So that third space can be really, really high. So really, really important.
Definitely. And I think it's important to note that as we are now transitioning to this working from home period, is finding the difference between routine and regimen. We're not working in the military. Well, most of us aren't working in the military. We need to give ourselves that little bit of leeway, like, for instance, my routine, I want to do mindfulness or meditation or movement. a lot of people like, no, I will meditate every morning even when they're not feeling like it. And you've got to give yourself, you've got to be empathetic to yourself, really. We've got 3 pillars of human connection that we work off: empathy, leadership, and empowerment. And empathy being for yourself and for others. And if we're not going to be empathetic for ourselves around our routine, then that's where we need to look first. And the third space is it to me, for sure.
I think this empathy for yourself is a really important thing to bring up, because quite often our challenges are because we forget to have empathy for ourselves. We set, really high standards. As business owners, we're great at taking opportunities and we're great at a whole lot of different things. But one thing quite often we can forget to be is forgiving for ourselves. We're pushing ourselves so hard. And I was talking to you earlier on about, this week I've been running flat out trying to organize these different spots to be speaking to everyone and have our little business shortcuts. And I've been doing it in the clumsiest, most cumbersome, awkward way. And all of a sudden I went, why don't I set up Calendly meetings? And that will help me. And all of a sudden I've gone, great. So now I've got a tool that I can relieve pressure off myself. But because I was so in the moment and not being prepared to let go, I wasn't ready to actually hear that, hey, there's a better solution to that.
I think that's a really good point in the sense, the word tool that you use. Now, a lot of coaches, we had a discussion last night and I said that coaches, like for myself personally, I hate being defined as a coach, because for me, a lot of coaches, and I'm being very sort of basket casing here, a lot of coaches don't give tools, they give kind of advice and almost like the sense of a motivational speaker yelling at you from stage, and then you walk away feeling motivated for 24 hours, but then no actionable tools. So what we work really well is we use the metaphor of sharpening the metaphorical saw blades of human connection. So we're giving tools to do so. And it's the carpenter inside me coming out, but we're giving tools to connect. And whether it is that circuit breaker, or whether it is showing people the best ways to empower, their workmates or their partner or their friend circle.
Absolutely. And while we're on that topic, it really is about being very supportive to your partner and to your family. You might be in a different situation. You're working from home instead of going out to the office. But your partner's also going through a lot of change with everything that's happening in the world right now. There's a great deal of change. And with all of that, we're all in a little bit of uncertainty while we're finding our space.
Yeah.
It's really important that we keep that connection with our family at this time. It's never been more important.
I could not agree more. And it's really concerning. We spoke earlier about the rise in suicide that's going to come off the back of COVID-19, but also the rise in domestic violence. And it's really, really concerning that it's not being spoken about enough. We're putting ourselves in these bubbles, and for a lot of people, their safe space was going to work, or their safe space was going to school, and etc. And now that's being taken away from them. Yeah. So I think it's kind of, as a nation, we need to talk about that. But in terms of, where do you separate work from a playtime? I'll use the term playtime. I think we just need to be really cognizant of, the devices. For instance, my office is directly behind me. I normally have an office in the city, and now I'm working from home. My partner, Sarah, runs boot camps. They're obviously cancelled, so she's working from home. So we're bouncing in between these virtual Zoom calls. Like, she's on a virtual Zoom call downstairs, I'm upstairs, and we're interfering with each other. The internet's going slow. There's so many things, but it's just like, you kind of got to scale. This is where we're at the moment, and we've got to work as a team to get through this, and we've got to try really put a line in the sand of where work finishes and where our time starts. And for us, once the sun's kind of gone down, the world's moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and if anyone needs to be working 24 hours a day at the moment, it's probably the Human Connection Project. But I also have a partner that I need to be supporting and connecting with as well. So we need to draw that line.
Absolutely, and with that, let's stretch that line and go, okay, so right now, if we think about the situation that we've got, a time of enforced change, okay? Hey, don't go leaving your house unless it's absolutely essential, and all that sort of stuff. With that, it has changed people's work patterns and behaviors, and it's a time where you can stop and you can do your meditational movement, and you can actually have a think about my business. Okay, if I was just to start today, knowing what I know from the history of running my business, what would I do to make that an awesome business? And allow a little bit of time each day or each week to be putting into that. The time that you're not serving clients or scrambling for clients or being active in your business, take time to actually be still and just think about, if I wasn't doing it this way, how would I set it up?
Yeah.
Because that's what will give you a great business coming out of this. And that can keep you productive at reshaping your business to be even better. It was by doing that I came up with, hey, if people are going to have a bit more downtime, let's provide some education where people can have that. So it's about taking that time out and going, hey, what should my business look like and how can I do that and put yourself in the best possible position? So it literally is using that time that you were talking about earlier, and that time and space in that routine, but stretching your timeline and go, okay, so if we're just coming off, here's our morning routine. Let's give this the dawn of a new era, because things are going to change. Everyone that I talk to talks about things are going to change. We're going to be working differently, in another 3 months' time to what we were even 3 weeks ago. How is that going to be? How should it look? And what's the best way for it to look for your particular business?
Yeah, there's so many levers to pull, isn't there? We've got, and I hate to use the word right now, but there's opportunities everywhere for people to change their business and create more impact. And I sat on a call, so we're a certified social enterprise under Social Traders. So I sat on a call yesterday with roughly about 19 other social enterprises, and the opportunity for impact now for business is larger than it's ever been. We've got an opportunity to impact the way people connect as human beings. Another friend of mine, Nick, who owns SwapU, has an opportunity to really change how people are swapping things in their household that they're not using. We've got law firms that are going online in Law on Earth. Like, there's so many opportunities for people to just pull a lever and give access to things that people would never have had access to before this.
Yeah, and that is just so true. So it really is about giving yourself some space, not being too hard on yourself. It's about having that empathy for yourself first, and then looking at the leadership and your self-leadership. So talk to us a little bit about that self-leadership.
Yeah, so leadership definitely isn't, a title or a position that you hold in a force. So leadership to me is your action. So it's looking to your left and your right, seeing that people are struggling right now and finding ways that you can bring them with you. So it might be, if I could use an example for what we're doing, there's a lot of counselors or psychologists perhaps that are out of work at the moment. So we're looking around going, how can we support them and give them employment moving forward? And, we don't have funds or capital behind us. We're trying to pull places and pull things together so we can make sure that people are staying employed. Leadership is the sense of saying, we're seeing gyms all around Australia right now that have had to close their doors. And instead of just packing up shop and going, hey, look, we're going to get the JobKeeper payment and we're just going to go into hibernation while this is all happening, we're seeing leaders stand up everywhere and look after their communities and make sure people are still moving and feeling connected to something that's bigger than themselves. So yeah, leadership is actions and movements. You can be a CEO of a business and be a leader, but unfortunately there's a lot that are not. The way that they're leading right now isn't leadership. It's the boss. You see we've seen those photos, we've all seen them 1,000 times before. The boss has the whip and the leader's at the front pulling the ship.
Absolutely. So empathy, leadership, and
empowerment. Yeah. So the third pillar is empowerment for us, and that's empowering both yourself to put all this into practice, because there's no point me jumping on calls and Zoom times and telling you all these amazing things if we're not then empowering you to go out and do them in everyday life, and also empowering others, because people are hurting, people are scared, people are exposed and vulnerable, and right now we need to empower them to feel their emotions. It's like we do a lot of work in schools and parents will be like, oh, this is how little Johnny's feeling right now, and they're trying to change how little Johnny's feeling rather than empowering him to say, look, these are your emotions, how can we walk through them and talk through them and build off the back of that. So emotions are people's truths, and we have to empower them to feel them and build a solution out of that. The best thing you can do to someone when they're struggling is not solve their problems for them. It's to sit next to them and act as kind of bumper rails at the bowling alley and help them solve them for themselves.
Absolutely. And it's so easy to problem solve. And we all love to problem solve because it gives us a sense of significance because, hey, we could solve that problem. Unfortunately, it doesn't help quite often. Occasionally, people are just looking for an answer, and an answer is the right thing to give them. But more often than not, they're just looking for someone to be there and be present. So
we just want to vent, don't we? You know, I see it all the time in my relationship. Sarah will come to me with a problem and I'll try to solve it. She's like, I didn't want you to solve it. I just wanted you to listen to me, you know, talk about the problem that I'm going to solve.
Yeah, it's not problem solving time. That was me.
Yeah, you told me we were going to stop work at 5.
I know we can all get there. Yeah. Look, tell us a little bit more about this. How good's living.
Yeah, so how good's living, I guess, Kevin, is just a phrase that was coined many moons ago, and we spoke about this a little offline. It was, you know, working at 7 a.m. in the morning, carpenter, building a house in the beating sun, no shade, and everyone would be whinging. I just kind of went, how good's living? You know, we're outdoors. Yeah, it's summer. It's 35, 40 degrees. It's stinking hot, but things could be worse. How good's living? We have this opportunity. I'm going to go for a surf after work where people are going home that don't have houses. And it's kind of just grown from there. And it's kind of just a daily practice now that I have built underneath Human Connection Project. We built a clothing line out of it. So when, similar to fantastic initiatives like Movember, when you walk down the street and you see another person walking towards you with a Mo during November, you kind of automatically have connection there. Or Dan and Ed from Trademark, when you see another tradie wearing a Trademark shirt, you know they're open for conversations and they understand the complexity and the difficulties around mental health at the moment. And that's what we're trying to do. It's just a little reminder that, you know, we've got air in our lungs and blood in our veins. Let's make the most of that and to be open to other people that are struggling and be open for those conversations. And platforms of support is something that we talk about all the time because we're a very awareness-driven nation and we do a great job at it. But in terms of rock solid platforms and pillars of support, that's where we sometimes lose track of it and fall off the wheel. So that's what we're trying to build, is those platforms so people feel supported at any time of the day, whatever they're going through.
Absolutely. No, thanks very much for that. So if you see someone in a How Good's Living shirt, have a chat with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll be absolutely supportive. So do that. And How Good's Living will be on our directory very, very soon. And so you can reach out and find out what you can buy from them. They'll have different pictures and all that sort of stuff as well. The Human Movement Project, the Human Connection Project, absolutely fantastic idea. And it really is important that right now we are not scared to reach out to others and genuinely and empathetically go, are you okay? Because it really is a time where, you know, we all need that little bit of extra support because we're feeling a bit, most of us are feeling a bit of a loss of that connection of others because normally we're used to going out to work and being around other people. And right now we're not getting as much as that as we would like. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
I'll get you to put some links in this in the commentary of this below to How Good's Living so they can find more about your stuff, as well as to the Connection Project.
Absolutely.
And I'll also have a chat with you with the Showcase membership. You do get 3 businesses for the price of 1. So we'll find out a little bit more about your partner, Haley, I think you said.
Sarah,
Sarah, so close.
Almost there.
There's at least 2 letters in common. I don't know how I come up with some of this stuff. It's really awesome.
We're all running at 1,000 miles an hour at the moment.
Absolutely. So Sarah's business will help you get that up online as well. So thanks very much for coming along and having a chat. If people are after someone to talk to, I'm sure Matt is more than happy to have a quick chat with you. So don't hesitate either to reach out on the stream or even send him a private message. So he'll be those as well. So thanks very much. I think you're doing an awesome job. I love the message that you've got as well.
Thanks, Kevin.
And hopefully working together, you know, we'll all get through this.
We will, definitely. Times are tough, but we're tougher. Thanks, mate.
That's true. Thanks, Matt. I'll speak to you a bit later. Bye now.